All right, it looks like people are all coming in. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Tracy Krulik, and I want to say a big, huge thank you to Your Dog's Friend for hosting just amazing webinars and programs and just being fantastic. Um, some housekeeping stuff. We are going to have you hold on to questions to the end. I mean, you can use the chat box and write some questions. There will be some folks monitoring the chat box, but I'm not going to be able to get to them until the very end. But so save them up if you have something. We're going to make some time for all the questions that we can get. I am going to. I guess I'm going to start. There's still some people coming in, but let's get started. So today is actually really interesting because this time, about 10 months ago, I did a presentation here for Your Dog's Friend on what we think was maybe going to happen with these lockdowns and COVID and all this stuff. And, we all knew that it was going to be different for everybody, including the dogs. But it was a little bit of a stab in the dark, like what's going to happen. Well, I can tell you that I've had such a massive influx in clients over the past just 6 months, even. And I've seen so many of the issues that we wondered might occur and they are actually occurring. And now that as people are starting to gear up to go back to a normal life, not only are we still dealing with the dogs that have had issues during the pandemic time, but now people are like, oh my God, my dog hasn't been left alone in 6 months. My dog has never been left alone. What am I going to do? So it's definitely, you are smart for being here now and learning how to do this stuff so that you can get ahead of it before hopefully any issues occur, or if there are issues that you can fix them before you have to go back to work. So we are going to talk about, I know you all came to hear about separation anxiety, but we're actually going to go a little bit wider than that. We're going to talk about separation related problems. And the reason is, um, for forever and ever, when a dog is barking or clawing or howling or having accidents or whatever, when left alone, everybody always says my dog has separation anxiety. The veterinarians say your dog has separation anxiety. Well, veterinary behaviorists and researchers in England came out with a report last year, an amazing study that tells us there's a lot more going on, that what we think is anxiety very well could be anxiety alone, but it also could be anxiety and frustration, or frustration alone. It could be something that has occurred because of boredom. If a dog is terribly bored, they're used to being with their people, and their people leave and there's nothing for them to do. That boredom in itself is really scary, and that can become a trigger for a dog to be afraid to be left alone. So we need to make sure we give our dogs the most enriching life as possible so that we can protect from that happening. And then also we're going to talk about the role that health plays into this. You might have noticed a lovely little beagle in all of these pictures. That is Emma the Beagle, who has changed my life for the good, for sure, and has helped countless dogs because I now do this because of her. And she is modeling for us all these different behaviors. She, on the right, she's getting her cold laser therapy because it turns out that she has arthritis, and that was what was the real big stumbling block to her overcoming her fear of being alone. So we want to set our dogs up for success. Modeling in this picture is Juniper the Pitsky, who is famous on Instagram and was one of my pandemic pups that I worked with this year, who has taught me so much. We need to we need to do these three things to make sure that our dogs are good. We need to make sure their physical well-being is set. So before you do anything, go to the vet, make sure that your dog is healthy. If there are allergies, if there are anal gland issues, if your dog is having teeth pain or joint pain or anything like this, anal gland issues, really itchy, that kind of stuff. It is hard to feel settled and relaxed if you're physically uncomfortable. Or it could even be something that maybe we don't even realize that might be occurring. In Emma the Beagle's case, it turned out that in addition to her arthritis that needed to get resolved for her to finally learn to overcome her fears, she also had epilepsy. We didn't know it. She started having seizures. And when she got on the medication for those seizures, literally the next day, major anxieties that had plagued Emma since we met her just completely washed away. So, in most cases, are we talking about a major thing like seizures or something like that? No, right? Like it's that's definitely more the zebra out there. But one of my colleagues does have a client right now, is working with a dog right now who it turns out is having focal seizures. And the veterinary behaviorist said, number one thing we're going to do is put this pup on medicine for that. Let's see what washes away. So take it very seriously, this physical stuff. How do you know if your dog isn't feeling well? He gets scared. He hides. He behaves differently. So they're talking to us when they don't feel well. They are telling us through their anxiety that something is up, and it's on us to both help them feel better and be healthy, and by doing so also allow us to live our fullest lives. Second, we need to work on their emotional well-being, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. We need to do, their dogs. They have, as a species, they have very different interests than what we have. I am a vegan. Chewing some type of cow knuckle is really not what I want to be doing or will be doing. But oh my gosh, one of my dogs that I'm working with got one of those cow knuckles this week. Ugh, it's so gross. And this kid is just suddenly going from like chewing up the windowsill, not when alone, but literally needing to chew something hard. So while mom's on a video conference, he's chewing up her windowsill right near her. We found the right types of things for him to chew, and suddenly he wants to snooze now. He's feeling good. And then, of course, training. And that training, as we're going to see, is not just strictly alone training. We need to take a holistic approach. If your dog, doesn't have good impulse control, or, is barking all the time because he wants attention or something, that stuff plays into whether they can handle being alone as well. So we want to make sure that they get a well-rounded education so that we can all be speaking, the same language together, and in a perfect world, we're all living together in harmony, happy. All right. So we need to start thinking ahead now. And I know it's been a long time since many of us have been back to, working in offices or working in some cases in schools or wherever it may be. And so life has been very different, either a complete shift from what your dog was used to before, or if you have a dog that you've adopted, brought into your home during the pandemic time, that pup is going to have, a totally different experience when you get back into quote unquote a normal life. So what's it going to look like? We need to start thinking through what that will be. Will you be getting on the bus again to catch the metro to go to blah, blah, blah? Will you be leaving early and then coming home for lunch? Will you have pet sitters come in? How many times a day are you walking your dog? Emma the Beagle literally said to us in her body language, you people are making me nuts. I'm not going for another walk today. Get out of the house and let me just chill on the couch with my best friend, my frog. I'm not going on 8 walks a day. Like I'm just and it was really we just needed to get out of the house, my husband and me. We just needed it. We wanted to be outside. And at first Emma was like, "Oh my God, this is exciting. We get to go again. We get to go again." And then like after a couple of days of it, she truly was like, "I'm done. I'm done with you people. You're making me nuts." So I think she feels for this kid who jumped up on top of the cabinets in the kitchen. Totally understandable. Start whittling that down. If when you're going to go back to work, if you're going to be walking your dog in the morning or at lunch or whatever, start building that in. Do you have to do it all now? No. I mean, it's probably for most of us still many months or at least weeks before we go back to some type of normal workplace, hopefully. Um, start building towards it. If you do 4 walks a day and you know you're only going to be able to do 1 or 2, start going back down to 3. If you've been free feeding all day and you're worried about that, when you go back to work or whatever, start getting back to a normal meal schedule, whatever it may be. We need to start, building back in for our dogs what a normal day will look like. And if, you're obviously not going to go to the office, but use, so I'm going to, say I'm going to walk him in the morning and then I'm going to leave to go to work at 8. So go ahead and start doing that. Walk him in the morning, get ready, leave at 8 o'clock, go do something else, go for a run, watch I don't know what it is, kids playing outdoors, whatever. Go sit by a dog park without your dog and watch the dogs. And then come back after a little bit of time or whatever, just so your dog starts getting used to seeing you go at that time again. Do we need to put our dogs in crates, behind gates, in X pens? This is Juniper again. And it really depends on the dog. It depends on the home. So if no, if your dog has separation anxiety, you do not 100% have to put your dog in a crate. You don't have to start crate training your dog in order to leave. So I know that that's on the internet, that everybody talks about that, but no, you don't have to do that for your dog to be able to stay home alone. But there are some circumstances where these things are warranted. So one, if you're still house training or chew training your dog or your puppy or whoever, then yeah, we need to puppy proof an area and we need to keep them from getting into trouble. Juniper was an unbelievably frustrated, amped up girl who wanted to just chew, 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 chew. She just needed to chew. So they had to, you can see the front of the gate here, they had to set up a permanent gate and made a little, Juniper world in the hallway there. And so we did her training using this setup so that she was able to be trusted alone in a little space and they didn't have to worry about her getting into trouble, because again, dogs love to chew. And so if they don't understand that that couch is not something for them to chew, they're probably thinking this is the best stuffed toy of my life. So we need to use crates or gates for that reason, or an X pen for a little puppy or something. Okay. So we're talking about gates and X pens and all that. I'm not sure where you guys didn't hear, but again, let me just repeat: house training, chew training. If your dog is getting into stuff and doesn't understand yet where it's appropriate to go to the bathroom and what it's appropriate to chew, then you're going to want to use some type of confinement area to do it. Also, if you need to give your dog a safe haven, so I had mentioned that I was working with a couple teachers this summer who live in houses with a bunch of people, and the dogs just could not settle in that home because there were just people coming and going all the time, and then there were other dogs, and it was just sort of mayhem. So we actually created a safe haven in the woman's bedroom, um, in actually in the two different homes with the same kind of thing in their bedroom, so that the dog learned that, okay, this is my safe place, this is my world. We just had to work on them leaving, on the women leaving the bedrooms as opposed to leaving the whole house for the dog to see, so that the dog had a quiet, safe place to be, and wouldn't get tripped up if suddenly a bunch of people came into the house or whatever. You can use a mud room, you can use a gated off area. I have another dog who's actually blind, and so we use a gated off room for her, so that we don't have to worry about her having difficulty, having getting into trouble or anything, because she can't see where she is. So this way she can stay safe. Dogs who have sound phobia, a safe haven is a really a wonderful thing, because you can not only um, put it in an area that is away as far as possible from noisy sounds, but you can also teach the dog to really love going there, so that they learn over time that when something scary happens, that's their place to go to. So with safe havens, with any of this stuff, if we want our dogs to feel happy and safe and comfortable in a confined area, then we need to make sure that they love that space. So don't use it for punishment. If you're, it's not something that you want to be taking your dog and putting him into a timeout or whatever. They need to be having, the best food ever there, the best experiences there. It's got to be their favorite, most comfy, snooziest spot. They've got to feel safe there. Whether you're using it for confinement against house training or shoe training stuff, or for a safe haven. All right, let's do a little myth busting. So I hear this a lot. I let my dog sleep with me. I know I'm spoiling my dog. So I'm creating this problem, right? And my answer is going to be, in this situation, no, you're not. You're not spoiling your dog. You are enjoying your dog. You are loving your dog. And we get dogs, we have dogs and cats and birds and whoever live in our home because we want their company. We want to love them. We want them to love us. We want all of us to be best friends. So enjoy your time with your dogs. You do not have to, dominate over them, or keep them at a distance in order for them to feel okay with this. We're going to teach them how to be independent when it's the appropriate time. The rest of the time of the day, enjoy your dog. Don't worry about this. So how do we do this? How do we help dogs feel so happy and safe and fun and not bored and not chewing up all of our stuff, so that we all can live in harmony together? And the answer is, let your dog dog. Let dogs dog. Let them be who they are. I am a dorky person who loves musical theater, and I also love sports, and I love to knit. I do all kinds of, I love to dance silly dances in my home. These are the things that make me happy. Dogs, they want to chew, they want to sniff, they want to play, they want to squeak their little squeaker toys. Let's let them do this. So there are ways to do it, though, that can really help us to get our freedom away from them. And one of them is that just giving our dogs a food toy where they can be working on this game or toy or whatever on their own, automatically, right off the bat, now we're starting to develop some independence. I work with dogs who are like super duper ball crazy. And if the only time they get fun and enjoyment and enrichment and stuff in their lives is when they are having a ball toss to play fetch, when they're going for walks with their people, when they're playing tug with their people, then when their people leave to go to work, we're going to have a problem. So we can set them up to play on their own really easy ways so that they feel great and feel happy on their own. Don't think of food toys. Now, we've all thought, everybody knows, give your dog a Kong, give your dog a ball that you put treats in, something like this. Try not to think of it as a distraction. I know, like, the older view on dealing with separation related problems is, oh, just give your dog a Kong, she'll be fine, she'll learn. Doesn't always work. In some cases, if the dogs were actually just bored and not actually scared, then in those cases, yeah, maybe giving them a food toy when you leave is a good solution. But for dogs who are really scared to be alone, they're either scared while they're eating the food toy, or they're too scared to actually eat any of it. It's not working. It doesn't, people call me all the time and they're saying, it's not working. It doesn't always work. It usually doesn't work. Food toys are not a distraction. They're a necessity. Okay. There's a reason why prisons use solitary confinement as a punishment. Think about that. Now think about a dog who doesn't get to do the things that he or she needs to do to feel fulfilled all day, and how scary that can become. So what can we do? First of all, ditch the bowl. Ditch the bowl. If you're feeding your dog out of a bowl, let's start weaning them off of it. There are so many fun, creative ways that we can give them food, just like, pour it in a little thing. But instead of pouring it in a dish, we're pouring it into a snuffle mat that Linus on the bottom right is showing us, or a Kong wobbler right above him. You just stick the kibble in the Kong wobbler and the dog has to bat around to get the food out. With the snuffle mat, they have to sniff around till they find the food that's squished in underneath the pieces of fabric. In the middle, you've got a licky mat, so you can take wet food. You can even take dry kibble and moisten it with some warm water. You could blend it or just squish it with a fork, and you can spread it on the licky mat, and then you can even freeze that. So now your dog's got a much more engaging experience to have his meal. On the left, we have a treat ball for it rolls around and whatever, they get the food out of it. Use toys strategically. We measure out our food first thing in the morning for Emma. We divvy it up at various times of the day between snuffle mats. We play hide and seek with Kongs. We use a treat ball. Number of times a day, we just throw kibble in the yard for Emma to sniff around. And you can think about it as, all right, I know that at 7 o'clock, my dog starts going bonkers. Well, that's a great time for maybe a licky mat. If you think about toys and how you use them, so the wobbler and the ball, you're moving around, you're batting the wobbler, that's going to get some energy going. That's going to get the dog pumped up. Something like a stuffed Kong that maybe you've frozen, you've filled it in with like a parfait of doggy foods and treats inside of it, and then sealed it up with some peanut butter and frozen it. That's going to be more of a calming effect. The licky mat is a great calming effect. Licking is relaxing, and they have to stay in place to have this. So at the time of day when you got a dog who needs to settle down, you give them something like a licky mat. You got a beagle who's terrified to go 5 steps away from you. We can start using a food ball because it's going to move away. So let's take a look at some of this. You can make these things on your own. You don't have to go out and buy everything. On the top left, we have Zoe Moo demonstrating her mad skills. Her mom is a fellow trainer who is amazing and has taken Moo's food for the day or for this meal and spread it out in the little muffin tins and then put little balls. And so she's going, licking and sniffing and all that stuff to get her food. Find it! This is Emma the Beagle hunting for some kibble. My husband just throws 1 or 2 pieces out there, and her crazy potent nose, because dogs' noses are like superhero strength. She goes to the yard and she finds it.
Good job.
Yeah, great job, Emma girl. And then here's Ems, who, this is a demonstration of walking away, but because I'm filming it, did you see her look up at me like, lady, you're in my space. I'm working on my ball here. So that's a great toy for really, like I said, dogs that are afraid, that are so attached to us, doing these activities like find it, like the this is a monster ball. It's like a ball with a big squishy mouth that opens up. These kinds of activities will help help the dogs start to move away from you without even realizing what's happening. Down at the bottom here, I've got some other stuff. So some dogs really love getting into boxes and paper and stuff like that. Make a sacrificial box, go for it, like do it purposefully. Take some treats and stick them down at the bottom, and put some other paper in there and put a toy in there or whatever. And that's, you know, that's your dog's play toy. Like, we're getting so many deliveries nowadays. We've got it. On the bottom right, that's just to show you there are different kinds of chews that you can use, so that you know, like that knuckle at the bottom, that Remy, the dog who was chewing the window sill, that's great for him, especially a dog who you're worried that they're gonna like swallow it, like they work on an antler and then you think they might choke on it or something. Well, it's hard, you know, the shape of these knuckles are big, it's difficult for them to have that issue. So we've talked about how to set your dogs up for success health-wise. We've talked about how to set your dog up for success in terms of having a fulfilling life. Now let's look at these underlying emotions that are often the root of a lot of the problems that we're dealing with here, okay? We've got on one side of the spectrum fear, which means the dog needs distance. They want distance from whatever is scaring them. You know, just as if I walked into an alley and then suddenly somebody came into the alley, I've got a couple choices. I can, you know, I'm definitely scared. I need to create distance from this person coming in here. So I can either, if I can, run, get out of there. If I can't, two things are going to happen. One, I might just freeze. I might just, you know, be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or I might start fighting. I might start screaming, which is screaming, fighting, clawing. If I'm a dog, growling, snapping, barking, lunging, all of that stuff. All of those things exist for me or the dog or whoever to get space from whatever is scaring them. So dogs who are afraid to be alone want to escape the terror of this place that they're in. Okay, they want to, they need to flee from it, just like I would be if somebody flooded my office with tarantulas and locked me in here. Oh my God. I would need, I'm gonna tear my door down. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start panting. I'm gonna be cowering. I'm gonna be licking, you know, dogs lick their lips, they lick their noses if they're uncomfortable. Their eyes widen, you'll see pupils dilate. They might start shaking, running away for safety. That's like me trying to get out of that alley or trying to get my door down if there are spiders in here. Aggression, you know, I'm going to fight for my life to get out of here. There are cases where where the dog is so scared to be alone that when people go to the door, the dog actually attacks the people. There are cases where people get bitten by a dog when they're trying to leave because the dog is that scared. In other cases, dogs will actually tear down doors or window surrounds to break out of a house. On the other side of it, we've got frustration, and that is you want something. So your dog loves other dogs and you're walking on leash, but it's COVID. People can't touch my dog. people can't come near. Like at the beginning, remember when everybody was like really seriously um, social distancing? We didn't know quite yet how you could get the disease. We started seeing a lot of what's called barrier frustration, which is dogs who are really social, but there's this rope, this leash thing that's holding them back from getting the thing that they want. They're frustrated. And so some of the body language things that you're going to notice in a frustrated dog is parting of the ear base. So they kind of move away, like the top of their head looks longer. The ears might flatten. They might be licking their nose. Yawning is a giveaway. Lots of blinking, dropping of the lower jaw. So here on the left, I'm going to show you my little model. Emma the Beagle is now going to show you what fear looks like. This is back from the early days with ETB before she became the brave beagle that she is today. Do you see how her tail is low, obviously. She's very stiff. She's actually quite confused because she's like, I want that food, but this thing and the sounds and everything, it's all very scary. She, at one point, there was some lip licking, if you saw that. That is a scared dog. Now, this video is a little weird, what you're about to see. This is not what you commonly see every day in a dog who's frustrated, but Emma's doing an amazing job in this next video of showing jaw dropping, ears parting at the base, and yawning. So see if you can spot them all. There you go. That's my girl. She wanted to play. She wanted to play. She's just and she was just frustrated. Why are we not playing? So let's talk about the fear side of being alone. So what is separation anxiety? If we're talking truly about anxiety and not a dog who's just, I want access to fun stuff. This is really a dog who's scared. It can be that they're afraid to be alone at all. It could be that they're afraid of being away from one person or specific other people. Both are valid. Oftentimes they're both. Emma the Beagle was very much afraid to be alone and also very, very, very uncomfortable to be away from me. If I went to go out for a jog and my husband was home back in the early days with her, she would cry the whole time I was gone, even though he was there with her. So when we think of a dog with separation anxiety, we see a lot of pacing, frantically running back and forth, having accidents in the house. You'll often see drooling. You might see like puddles of saliva, dogs barking, howling, crying, and the crying, the barking that you hear is higher than like a watchdog. It's more like a plaintive cry. So and they oftentimes would chew exit areas, door frames, windowsills when they're alone, not like Remy, who's chewing it when his mom's there just because he wanted something fun to chew. So I'm now going to show you Emma the Beagle in the before times, before she overcame her fears. That is her peeing on the couch. And now she's heading back over to the door. She would do this in cycles. I see this, it's very common that these dogs um, cry it out. They're in a panic, a panic. They cry, 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 howl, scream, chew thing, whatever they're going to do. And then they kind of knock themselves out. I mean, they're just exhausted from it. They'll fall asleep for a certain amount of time, and then the cycle begins again. So if your dog has this panic response for and then eventually lies down, um I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I wouldn't be like, oh, he works it out, she works it out, she gets there eventually. If they're feeling this level of fear, even if they do possibly work it out, it's still something that I would recommend that you work on, because if you probably love your dog and don't want your dog to suffer, and B, um, it could very well get worse. So, Emma started out in the early days barking and howling. That progressed to peeing on the carpets. That eventually got to her peeing on the couch. And then she eventually got to chewing the door frame. At that point, we realized, despite our efforts back then, we weren't having any success and her anxiety was getting worse. And at that point, our only choice really was to not leave her alone at all and to start working on training her the right way. We will talk about this issue of leaving your dog alone or not. Let's bust a myth. So my dog needs to learn that I always come back. Have you guys heard that? Have you said that? People say, oh, I just got to go out and come in. You just got to always come back. Your dog will learn that you always come back. Um, let's reframe that. It's not that your dog needs to learn that you always come back. It's that your dog needs to learn that nothing bad happens when you walk out the door. Let's think about my office and the tarantulas. I'm a card carrying arachnophobe, so this is very difficult for me to imagine this. So I see how much I care about this topic that I'm willing to talk about spiders for you. Um, imagine somebody barricades me in my office. They start flooding the room with tarantulas. I'm having a breakdown. I'm totally losing it. I have peed my pants. I am screaming and crying and clawing at the door and whatever I can do. And my husband finally comes home, saves me, and I get out of the room. The next day, if the same thing happens, I'm once again locked in my office and somebody's flooding it with tarantulas. Do you think I'm going to say, nothing to worry about? Tom always comes home. He'll let me out at some point. No way, right? Like, first of all, fear is not rational. It's an emotional response. I got mine because we lived in a house that was infested with spiders for 6 months. My mom screamed like somebody was murdering her every day when one came near her. I learned from that spiders are scary. I should stay away from them. So I'm not going to be in the frame of mind to handle it, to be able to say, it's okay, Tom always comes back. Plus, I'm terrified that there's something bad is going to happen to me. So now I'm in like fight or flight. I'm trying to protect myself in some way. My body is telling me I need to create distance. That's what your dog is going through. Your dog is saying, oh my God, I need to get out of this scary place. It doesn't matter if they're going to come back in 10 seconds or 10 hours. If your dog is terrified the second you walk out the door, your dog is terrified. And you're coming back in at some point only serves to give them relief at that moment. It doesn't teach them a positive message like, well, now he's learned I always come back. So just kind of flip it in your mind. We want them to learn that nothing bad happens when you walk out the door. By the way, this kid, Tanner, was a mess the first day I met him. He was a pandemic puppy. He'd never been left alone. They started walking to the door. He flipped out. He was humping his bed constantly through the training session. We could not get him to settle down. A week later, this is what he looked like when they were gone for 18 minutes. 2 weeks later, this is what he looked like when they were gone for an hour. So by teaching a dog that nothing bad happens when you walk out the door, this can be the result. floppy, floofy, happy, snoozy pup. So how do we do it? We're going to use a method called desensitization. Thank you, Emma the Beagle, for modeling once again what a snoozy pup looks like when they're left alone. Desensitization is a term that is thrown around all the time in dog training. We got to desensitize the dog, blah, blah, blah. Go out and come in and go out and come in. Not as simple as that. There are three factors to desensitization to make it work. One, we got to introduce the scary thing little by little. So in this case, it's how much time you're away from your dog. So we don't go away for an hour and then 2 hours. We need to, like, little by little chunks, teach the dog, it's nothing bad. I'm walking out and coming back before you're scared at all. I'm walking out and coming back before you're scared at all. Two, we have to do it at a level from the beginning and always through that the dog is not at all scared at all. No way, no fear, not biting nails, not eyebrows raised. Dog isn't pacing, isn't fidgeting. The dog isn't whimpering. The dog isn't running to the door. The dog is not scared at all. And three, and this is the big one that most people aren't doing, I find, is the dog has to be relaxed. There's a lot of debate in the dog training community about whether we can teach dogs to relax. And I will happily get into a heated discussion with anybody who tells me that we cannot do it, because I watch dogs relax through our training every day. And I've seen veterinary behaviorists do it. There's enough evidence out there that we are in fact able to teach dogs to relax. And when our dogs are relaxed, if your dog looks like that when you leave, it is a much more relaxing experience walking out the door. If you're used to your dog being terrified every time you leave and rushing to the door and whimpering and whatever, when you can leave knowing your dog looks like that, you can really, really, really enjoy yourself away from home. This isn't a made up or new concept for dogs, desensitization. It's psychology. It's human psychology. It works across species. It's, those three components. That is psychology. That is time tested procedures, scientific procedures to help an individual overcome a fear. So let's talk about what it looks like. Here's how the process works. The best way to show it is by talking about how we do it with people. Okay. And then we're going to extrapolate that into dogs. So this poor guy is terrified of climbing ladders. He fell off a roof, climbing up to the roof when he was a kid, and he broke his arm, and he has not been able to stand on a ladder since then. But now his boss is telling him, it's COVID, we don't have as many people, and everybody's got to chip in. So I need you to start climbing. You're going to have to get up that 10-foot ladder and take the boxes down the shelf when I need you to do that. He's petrified. So he comes to me and is like, you've got to help me. What am I going to do? And because I'm not a psychologist, a human psychologist, but I'm a nice person. So I'll say, well, I can help you. Let's try it. So the way that it works is we first need to figure out where on the ladder does my friend, we'll call him John, where can John stand on the ladder and not feel any fear at all? Okay. He's not biting his nails. His palms aren't sweating. He doesn't have that really freaked out look on his face. He's loose and relaxed. We need to figure out where he can stand on that ladder for that to occur. Now, I might be able to stand on the ladder on like the third rung or the second rung, but John is terrified. So he needs to have 1 foot planted on the floor at all times. So that's where we're going to start. He's got 1 foot on the floor and 1 foot on the first rung. While he's standing there, we're going to have him do breathing exercises that we taught him prior to starting this. So he's taking some deep breaths in, he's relaxing, he's just feeling zen. We got some nice quiet music playing, and he's feeling really good. And he says, you know what, I can do this. and he takes his foot from the floor and he puts it on the first rung and he's like, that was silly. It's 6 inches from the floor. Of course I can stand on that. So now he's good. We've got him up to the first rung, and we're going to little by little help him get up that ladder. He gets to the third rung. He's got that one foot on the third rung, and he can start to feel his heart racing a little bit. And he starts to feel his hands getting sweaty. And so he has to back down a bit and find out where he's comfy again. And then he can start building from there. So there's this constant checking in. How are you feeling, John? Are you really comfortable with this? He's talking to himself. Yeah, I can do this. I feel fine. We're going to take that exact same method and we're going to apply it to dog training. So
I don't know where the dog training is
we got somebody. Somebody needs to mute if they're not muted. So we're gonna take the same concept, and now we're going to build our own ladder. We're gonna figure out what the steps are in our own ladder to figure out where our dog can stand and feel comfortable. So what is our ladder? Our ladder is the steps that it takes to leave your home. What are the pieces of getting out of your home? If you're sitting, you have to stand up, and then you've got to walk how many steps to the door? Say it's 10 steps. So you've got to take 10 steps. Then if we break it down into little pieces, first you touch the doorknob, then you turn the doorknob. You can open the door an inch. You could open the door a quarter way, little by little by little. Even walking out, you step one foot through first and then come back in. You could do, I've got both feet out, but I don't close the door. I can step out and I can close the door halfway. So each little step, and it doesn't mean that for every dog you're going to have to go through each little step, but it's just getting your mind thinking that way, thinking about, gosh, well, when I go to the door, my dog's not scared, but when I open it, he gets scared. And I've gone back and I've opened it a bunch of times, but he's still getting scared and it's just not doing anything. Well, can we break it down so he's okay with you walking to the door? But how do we break the door opening into small enough pieces that we can figure out which step of the ladder he's comfortable on? Okay. So what we're going to do, we can't say to him, hey, which ladder step can you step on? So we're going to do what I call the doorknob test to figure this out on the dog. Okay. So what I want you to do when you do this is you're going to sit somewhere that could encourage your dog to settle down and relax. For instance, when you sit down and watch TV at night, does your dog have a bed nearby or a favorite spot on the couch that she always goes to? You could start there. Or everybody's working from home nowadays. A lot of dogs are fine, are relaxed and mellow if their people are sitting at their desks working because they know they never get any attention. If they, I had one client who, if she sits on the couch, the dog expects her to throw the ball. But if she sits at her desk, the dog relaxes. So we need to kind of think through that. So which of those places is going to encourage your dog to, if they follow you to the door, to keep coming back to that place that they feel comfy? When you do the doorknob test, this is the time when we're going to ignore the dog. And anytime we do the training after the doorknob test. So you're going to ignore your dog. Pretend like you do not have a dog. Pick nothing, just don't even, if he looks at you, if he starts pawing at you, unless your dog is a puppy who's biting you, your dog is having accidents or something, which we need to address those. If your dog is just trying to get attention, ignore him. You do not have a dog. Don't pick anything up. We just want to see what happens when you go to the door. So don't pick up your keys, don't put on your coat, don't do any of that stuff. When you do the test, you're going to walk to the door, turn the doorknob, but do not open the door, and then return to where you were sitting. So here's how it works. We think about John and his ladder, right? He could start at the first rung with his foot on the ground. Third rung was too high. So you do your doorknob test. You walk to the door, you turn the doorknob, do not open the door, and then go back and sit down. What does your dog do? Most dogs fly to the door. Many dogs will start barking either when you start going, or when you touch the doorknob, when you turn the doorknob. And a lot of these dogs, most of these dogs, will also angle their body with their little nose at the crack of the door so that they can get through, so that because they know that door's going to open and they got to get out of there. They don't want to be stuck in there. So that's why we don't open the door on the test. Watch what your dog. So let's say your dog flies to the door like most of the dogs. Okay, go back and sit down. Hang out there for like a minute and a half. Take the time to write down what your dog's body language is telling you. Now try walking halfway to the door. Okay, you walk halfway to the door, dog's still panicking. Okay, fine. Still flies to you. Okay, go back and sit down. All right, let's break it down smaller. Try walking, say 3 steps. And the dog stands up, is about to fly, but you stop before you even like get anywhere, and you go back to the couch. And he's like, now he's getting like a little bit, I'm not moving quite as much. All right, what if you walk 2 steps? He is still standing, but he hasn't gone anywhere. And you wait a little bit of time, and he finally lies down in like, 30 seconds or something. And this time, try walking 1 step. He stays lying down, but his head is up. Cool. I can work with that. We've kind of got him like 1 foot on the floor, 1 foot on that first rung. He's staying where he is. He's this dog who always flies to the door. Everybody's like, no, he's going to fly out the door if I try to leave. We need to put a barrier. By doing this test, by figuring out where is that point where your dog can start to feel safe, even with you standing up and starting to walk, where your dog can feel safe, suddenly he's settling down. He's not flying to the door. So now we can like noodle around that area. So we want to remember, we're just going to kind of like do different little exercises until we find the point where he starts looking relaxed. The key to training your dog to overcome any fears is to read his body language. And the best way that you can learn to read your dog's body language is to write it down. So in those 30 to 90-second breaks between getting up and walking to the door or doing your 2 steps or whatever, have, your computer out or a pad and pencil or something, write it down. He flew to the door this time. He just stood up. He lay down as soon as I came back. His ears were up. He whimpered and he sighed, whatever it is. Did your dog follow part of the way? Did he go all the way? When did it happen? Did he vocalize? And what about the micro behaviors? So think about this. Everybody always says, we just, you just don't want your dog to like fly out the door or whatever. So I just got to get out as quickly as possible so my dog doesn't fly out the door, but he'll be okay. He can handle it. Our goal is to do the opposite of that. Our goal is not to have him fidgeting, is to not have him pacing around, is to not have him running to the door. Because if he's doing any of that, he's either scared, tense, or both. And we need him to not be scared, and we need him to not be tense. We need him to be relaxed. So now we've done this doorknob test to figure out where he stays lingering on the couch or in his bed or whatever. Rather than thinking of only taking notes about he flew to the door or he got up this time or whatever, I want you to really start looking at his fine details. What do his ears do? Does he have one ear that stands up and kind of turns every time he hears a sound? Are both ears down floppy? Does he have is his forehead furrowed? Is he, does he look tense? Did he sigh? Is he flopped on his side? Did he get a leg twitch? Look at him as if you've got a telescope on him. We need to look close. We need to look up close to see what's going on, because if we only focus on the big movements, he ran to the door or he didn't run this time, he stayed put. If we only think about that, then we're not paying attention to how he's feeling underneath. We're not reading his story, because he's going to tell it through those little body language things. My eyes are like lasers when I'm upset. When I'm angry, I have a very weird response to things that upset me. I smile often. The more annoyed about something, the bigger the smile on my face. And if you just looked at my smile, you'd be like, oh, she's having a good time, blah, blah, blah. But if you looked at my eyes, apparently they look like lasers are firing out of them. And so only the people who like really know me, or who have suffered the wrath of my eyes, can tell you that, oh my God, it is just, you have to look at her eyes. So if they're just looking at my body, if they see me smiling from far away, they might think I'm having a good time. But if they really laser in and come close and they look at my eyes, they're going to see that there are daggers coming out of those things. So it's the same thing with dogs. I mean, we all wear our emotions on our skin, but you have to look for it. So try to think bigger, or try to think smaller, actually, instead of looking for the big stuff. Did he get up? Did he go to the door? Yeah, that's important, but we also really need to look at the tiny stuff too. Those tiny things can be the difference between you leaving your home and not. In order to do the training, you want to create a Zen atmosphere, right? We want to relax dogs. So we got Zadie on the bottom there, who has learned that the air vent is a nice cozy place to go. One of my trainer friends likes to use heating pads for dogs to relax on. It settles them down. In the top corner there, we've got Remy and his sidekick Bandy, the kitty cat. I don't know if you could see it, but Bandy is like my favorite thing in the planet. Her looks like she's given him a sideways look, like this guy. She's constantly taunting him. Like he'll be trying to like settle, and you just see her pop up over the side of the stairs, and it's just hilarious. But as funny as it is, we need his people to be able to leave the house. So we've created a situation now where they have gated the doorway upstairs to the bedroom. You can kind of see it starting over there. And Bandy has to stay back there when they're going to leave, so that we can get Remy feeling relaxed and not being like, cat, cat, cat. We need him to be chill. But guess what we're doing with Bandy up there? We're giving Bandy food toys, so that she's got mental enrichment as well. It's not just a dog thing. It's the kitty cats need it too. The birds need it. The hamsters need it. All of them. We all need it. So that's a way for a win-win. She's more comfortable with the idea of being upstairs alone because she's got these fun food toys to have, and Remy can get a little more peace and quiet. White noise can be very helpful if you're in an apartment building, and your dog reacts to all the sounds in the hallways and stuff. Try a white noise machine or TV or radio to see if you can cover that stuff. Close your window shades if your dog gets hyper looking out at things. Enzo, the poodle up in the top right, has a little tennis ball, if you can see it. This kid is so ball obsessed that it took us about a week or two of just teaching him how to live without needing somebody to toss him a ball every single minute of the day in order for his person to be able to actually leave. So we've got to address, when it's okay, when it's appropriate to play, and when we need the guys to settle down. The toy box is on here because Zadie, my adorable little chihuahua on the bottom there, if the toy box is out, she wants to play. She's going to be running around squeaking, and we need her to settle down. We need her to relax in order for her to feel safe alone. So before we start the training, the toy box gets put away. All of her toys gets put away. Where you sit or stand can make a huge difference. Zadie's mom pulled her chair from her desk 1 foot one time, the first time we trained up in her office, and Zadie was running around like crazy. As soon as her mom pulled the chair into the desk where she actually works, Zadie suddenly lay down near her little air vent right there. She has learned, when mom is at her desk working, I'm not going to get any attention. I might as well relax. I might as well snooze on my own. Well, when she pulled away from the desk, Zadie was like, play now? Are we going to play? Why aren't we playing? And now she's getting frustrated. I thought we can play now. What is happening? So it makes a huge difference thinking through where you want to do the training from. Bones and chews, some of these puppies, some of these dogs like Remy, they need those chews. They need that stuff. I'm totally fine if a dog wants to chew a bone when we're doing training. If we're giving them a Kong or something like that, I want to make sure that they really are feeling good. And so I wait until they can do an extended period of time, usually before I'll let them have like a food toy for an absence. But bones, stuff like that, that are just, them for there to nosh on and just keep themselves chill, I'm fine with that. Creating a Zen atmosphere also happens with you too. So try to breathe, try to, find your Zen. It's about relaxation. Think about that you're going to do this successfully. You're going to help your dog. So kind of go with those positive vibes so that you're not reacting and making sounds and jerking in ways that might take your dog out of the relaxed mood. Then there's, of course, tip-offs to leaving, right? Shoes, keys, bags, coats, blah, 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 blah. First, start doing the doorknob test and just getting your dog comfortable with you going to the door. After a couple of days of that, your dog's feeling really good. Now you can start adding in these other sounds, but like do it one at a time so that you know what's triggering him and what isn't. Day one, on day 3, we pick up the shoes each time, I mean, the keys each time. We do, so the next day we put on the shoes and the keys, just kind of play around with it that way. Train, oh, that's Zadie. I just think she's so cute. Train in a session rather than doing ins and outs throughout the day. So a lot of people will like, oh, I always go and I open the door and blah, 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 blah. It's easier for dogs to learn that the keys don't predict something scary. The door doesn't predict something scary if we do it in a controlled setting, one after another, rather than throughout the day. You'll see, it's just like the doorknob test. You'll see the wheels turning. Every time you go to the door, every time you do another thing and you don't scare the dog, they start to settle down. So when you then add in keys each time, it doesn't scare them. But if you don't do that and instead at 7 o'clock in the morning, you grab your keys and the dog flies to you and you put him down. And then 2 hours later, you grab your keys and the dog flies to you. They're just on high alert at all the time. When's it going to happen? So in most cases, it's much better to train them, 5 or 6 days a week, once or twice a day, 15 to 30 minutes of exercises is going to get you there. Wait 30 to 90 seconds between exercises, write down your observations, and also keep a daily log of, who did the training, what time of the day was it, how many warm-up exercises, all of the practice steps that you do before you finally leave. Those are warm-ups. What kind of exercise did he get? What kind of enrichment, feeding enrichment, taking any meds, any health issues, all this stuff. Because part of separation anxiety training is not just about desensitizing and doing training properly. It is also about putting on a Sherlock Holmes hat and figuring out what things are going on in our dogs' lives that makes them better or worse at being able to handle being alone. All right, so we're going to look at a couple dogs. First, you see Dixie, who is not a black rectangle. She is a German Shepherd, 2.5 years old. She was adopted in August, completely shut down. I mean, this dog, it took them months for her to even understand that a dog bed was a safe, comfy place to be. She is now comfortable with her people petting her and stuff, but completely shut down. In this video, you're going to see during the early days of her training, we're doing things like walk 3 steps, walk 1 step, walk to the stairs, walk to the mudroom would be the farthest place that we go. And then between each is going to be a 30 to 90 second break. But in the video, I've cut out the breaks for the most part. So it's going to go a lot faster than if you do it yourself. Take your time when you do it. Start to feel the Zen vibe of your dog stop feeling scared, give yourself, pace yourself when you do it. Look for the micro behaviors. All right, so this one, we've got her head going up. They just walked like 3 steps there. Head went up, ears went up, eyes open wide. She's kind of like, like sort of frantically looking left and right. Lies down, she's blinking, and now she's ready for the next one. They're still going. See her right ear? How her right ear kind of like paddled a little bit. There's a nice sigh. Here's the next one. That was only a couple steps, and Dixie's head didn't come up that time. But can you see her eyes? Do you see her eyebrows? They're kind of going up and down and up and down, and her right ear is still paddling a bit. So she's on alert still. Her eyes look like they're starting to shut a little bit. A little farther that time. Yeah, there it is. You could see just before her head came up. Did you see her eyes widen? Legs starting to twitch. That's one of Dixie's tells. When she's starting to release the tension, her leg starts twitching. Right ear again. Left ear moved a little bit. Eyes widened. She's blinking. Eyebrows, do you see them? Head still staying down. Right ear still going. There we go, Dixie. Let it out. Eyes are closing. There's that leg. Can you feel the energy shift? Right ear. Now they're going all the way to the mudroom. Still blinking, but her face is softening. You can see that one, obviously. That was the longest one they did. They went to the mudroom. Still haven't touched the door in any of these exercises. All right, now she's like, I'm starting to, this is gonna be okay. Big sigh. Now they're just doing a couple stand up, sit down. You can see their shadows a little bit. Her body's starting to release some tension. She's able to like move her head around now. Back over to the mudroom. Leg kick. Her eyes are closing. Slow motion. And there it is. Big sigh. That's what a relaxed dog looks like. That is Dixie. The first week I trained her, I was petrified because she has been through so much and she was so rigid. She was just frozen. Many dogs who are just, she came from an abusive background. She learned that the safest thing to do was to not do anything because she didn't know what was going to get her in trouble. And so these dogs who, are punished all the time, are use physical force or whatever, many times they just shut down. They just stop behaving. And so she was just curled up in a bed as tight as a ball. And the only thing that I could do to figure out, okay, is she feeling comfortable in any way? Where is her fear threshold? Where's that line between where she's starting to feel comfortable or not? And I focused on those micro behaviors. And we have found that when she is trained, if we can do the exercises, enough, easy stuff, until she finally does this side flop, sigh kind of thing, we're pretty much set at that point. Do a few more exercises and then they can leave. They can leave their house. It we were up to, at the end of the second week, this one, we were still being really careful. So I didn't have them leave at all at the end of the session. By the end of the next week, we tested it. She was at 11. Last week, she was at 20 minutes. She's just doing exceptionally well. And the only way we could unlock it was by reading her body language and helping her get to a relaxed place. If we only focused on the meta behaviors, does she go to the door? Does she pace around? Does she whatever? We would be stuck for, possibly forever, just as they had with, previous training that they've tried, that it was just hit or miss. They didn't know when she was going to do well or not. But by reading her micro behaviors, we were able to know exactly when she was comfortable up until what point. Here's a myth. Medication should be a last resort and they will turn my dog into a zombie. So it's kind of old thinking. The thinking nowadays is the right medication can help your dog be happier, more playful, just enjoy life better, behavior medications. And also if we pair behavior medications with training like this, there's a good shot you're going to get through the training faster than not. Sheba is a foster dog from Humane Rescue Alliance that I've been working with, and she has had major hip surgery. She needed anti-anxiety medication that also has a painkiller element to it. And so by helping her feel less physical pain, also having some anti-anxiety benefits from it, she's little by little getting more comfortable being away from her people. And she discovered here the joy of a flirt paw. She's just having a blast that day. Okay, the other kind of training I want to show you guys is this, okay, I need to actually teach a dog to settle down. Like Juniper the Pitsky, this girl needed to learn how to chill out. She also needed to fall in love with the gated off area. And so we can do the same training to get her there. This kind of training is great for dogs who are super frustrated, puppies who just don't know what to do yet. They're flying all over the place. Dogs who just can't seem to settle in life, but not from a fear standpoint, like they're just constantly ball, or whatever it is. And dogs who get upset when another dog leaves the house without them. So I'll use the desensitization training at first for the dog to teach him there's nothing to fear when people leave the house. But then I've got a situation where they want to, sometimes we need to take one of our dogs and not the other. And so we'll use this training, this second training plan, to help the dog feel comfortable with that specific scenario. In order to help dogs not feel frustrated, one of the ways that we can do it is by becoming better dog trainers in everything that we do. One of the most common things you'll hear people say is, my dog knows how to sit, she's just being stubborn. My dog knows how to come when called, he's just being stubborn. My dog takes the treats really, really hard, he's just snapping off my hand every single time. These are things that we hear. Oftentimes it's because we expect the dog to be able to do something that they're not yet equipped to do. They just don't understand it well enough. And there is thankfully a way using scientific training methods to be sure that they know it. We need to make sure that they have a proficiency of at least 80% correct before we can move them to the next level of difficulty. So how do we do that? Train in sets of 5. So every activity you're going to do, if you're teaching your dog to sit, you're going to ask him to sit 5 times. And if he gets 4 or 5 of those sits correct, and in this training is relaxed, then we can move to the next step of the plan. If he gets 3 correct, we're going to do another set of 5. If he gets less than 3 correct or is not relaxed, we're going to go back and do something easier. I will make this training plan available to you guys. We'll send it out after the webinar when we have, we'll also send slides to you then. So I'm going to show you how this training works. We're going to use Riley. Riley's a 5-year-old miniature poodle Bichon mix. He was adopted in December, and holy cow, when his mom on day 1 got up to walk over to the doorknob to turn the doorknob, Riley lost it. I mean, he flipped out. He flew in the air. He was barking and screaming and spinning. And I mean, this kid just, everything was just going on there. And we knew that we had to teach him to settle before we'd be able to do any of this. So we did the relaxing on the belly training. You might call it a downstay training plan. And yeah, I use the same downstay training plan when I'm not working with a dog who is afraid to be alone. But you can use it in this context very successfully. So we're first, basically what I'm taking is standard downstay dog training plans. So you could take any downstay plan that you use, and as long as you apply the counting rules to it and the body language reading to it, you'll be able to do this. The plan that I worked with starts with using food as a distraction. Then we walk around the dog as a distraction. And then from there, we can start working in the departures. So we're going to start with food. When in the training plan that you'll get, you'll see that we start with the food in the air for 1 second and then 3 seconds. Now we're going to the next step, which is starting with food on the floor. Remember, if Riley is relaxed and maintains the down, then he gets it correct. We're going to do 5 of them before we can move to the next one. Move that down, you give it to him. Okay, all right. So you're going to touch the floor with the treat and then give it to him. Yay, that's 1. Beautiful. Do that 5 times.
Like a foot away or doesn't matter?
What you're doing is perfect.
Okay.
1, and you're stretching your hamstrings too. 3. And give it to him. Oh my goodness, look at him go. See how he's resting on his hip?
The treat monger. He'll do whatever it takes to get this salmon training treat.
And do one more. All right, can you put it on the floor for 3 seconds?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Oh my goodness, give it to him. Yeah, at the end of 3, right away, pick it up and give it to him. 1, 2, 3. Yay, look at him go.
Oopsie.
See, oh, and he didn't even move for that. Give him that, because he's a
Good
awesome
boy.
guy.
Good little buddy.
1, 2, and do one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, so look at his body language. You see how he's hiked on his hip? He's not like in the Sphinx position, which I think he's going to be a little bit in the next one that you're going to see. This is an uber relaxed lying down position. This is what we want to see. Also encourage you to feed the dog low, so you can feed him like between his little paws, or even put the food on the floor. It's going to keep his head down, lower to the ground each time. We want to keep him from lunging up. We want him to kind of stay close in that relaxed position. Now on this next one, we're going to work on walking around. So you start with 1 step to the left, come back in front of him, give him a treat. She's up to 2 steps, and we do that 5 times. Peace. Look at this kid. And see, she's feeding him right down. Beautiful. That's 3. That's 4. That's 5. You can do 3 steps. That's 1. Good job. Beautiful. That's 2. Starting to settle down even.
Yeah.
There's 3. Interesting, when you spoke, his little tail lifted up a bit.
Uh-huh.
It shows it's like, relaxation is such a key part of this. And
Yes.
I'm with you.
Do 2 more. It's 4. I might have lost count, but if there's an extra, it's
No, I think you're right.
and that's 5. Okay, it's gonna get crazy now. Can you walk all the way around him?
Let's give it a shot.
What a pro. That is 1. So she would do, still working in sets of 5. They were rocking it, so you didn't get to see them backing up at all. But again, if he only got 3 correct, meaning he stood up, then she would go back to the step before and do 5 sets, 5 reps of that. If he only got, if he stood up 3 times, then she would repeat. And if you got less than 3 right, then she's going to back up and go to maybe the 3 steps instead of walking all the way around. From here, I was now able to bring the desensitization exercises into Riley lying on his mat. Okay. So now I'm going to have her going out, doing things like go out, close the door or lock the door, come back in, but give them a treat. Dogs who are really frustrated, we need to keep their attention. We need to keep them feeling comfortable in the game. Juniper was, if we didn't give her that treat between each exercise, she really got revved up. Once we gave her the treats, she was like, yeah, I got this. I know what this game is. So here, let's take a look at that. She puts her keys away. She comes back in, gives him a treat. And a little floof stays lying down. All right, step out, lock the door, and then come right back in.
Okay.
Do you have your cell phone on you?
Yes, I have it right here.
All right, so head on out, pull out and park somewhere on the street.
Okay. Should I put him back down? Tracy, should I put him back down on the mat?
Yeah, now you go ahead. Go ahead and give him a couple treats.
Okay.
I am. You stay with Miss Tracy.
So watch. He actually follows her to the door this time. And watch what he does. It's like, you're gone? Okay, I'll just lie down then. So Riley using this system, it took us a couple weeks of just teaching him the basic, how to settle down. Then after that, he just, duration just exploded. He's going to be doing 3 hours, I think, this week. He's up to 2 hours and 15 minutes last time I saw him. People ask me all the time, a downstay doesn't make sense at all. How can I get my dog to stay in his mat for 5 hours? And you don't. That's not the goal here. So there's downstay that we need to do. We're in a competition or we're in a class and we need the dog to stay in a downstay or whatever it may be. I need the dog to stay down while we eat dinner, blah, blah, blah. That's not the purpose here. The purpose of this is a vehicle. So my client was still a little uncomfortable at first with the idea that it was okay for him to get up. So that's why when he first got up, I just said, go ahead, give him a treat and we'll do it again. She's now gotten used to the idea that, yeah, he's allowed to get up because it's not about the behavior, it's about the emotion. That's what's important here. The training the behavior of lying down, training him to learn to settle and to learn that if I stay calm, good things come my way, set the foundation so that he could relax. To this day, he still likes to go and snooze on, he likes to snooze on the little mat in the kitchen. He's comfortable there. That's where he hangs out when she leaves. She doesn't have to do any exercises to warm him up or anything anymore. She just grabs her stuff and goes. He'll often kind of wander over to the door and then he'll go and he'll lie down and he's perfectly content with a floofy, floppy body like this one in this picture here. So remember, we're not we're not worried about the behavior at this point. It's about the emotion, not it's about how the dog feels. To sum it all up, if your dog is fine, you haven't left your dog alone forever, you do the doorknob test, you check it out, he's totally rocking, he's doing great, you can leave. He doesn't follow you when you go to the door. He doesn't even like lift his head up or care. You can go out and lock the door. Nothing bothers him. Great. Go out without your dog. Get some time away from your house. It's getting nicer out in the mid-Atlantic where I am. Hopefully it's going to keep getting warmer out. Spend time away from your dog so that your dog can get used to this stuff. Remember, to work on that normal departure process, grab your bags and your shoes and your keys and whatever. And you can even train without leaving your home, grab all your stuff. And then rather than leaving to go to the office, leave to go to your home office, walk into your home office so that your dog starts to get comfortable with this idea again, that you take all kinds of stuff and then you leave to go to work. You can teach your dog a downstay using the training plan that I'm going to share with you. And then give your dog a food toy and downstay on your mat with a food toy and then go into another room and do your work. Whatever we can do to just kind of keep that independence going, give our dogs opportunities to not only be able to be alone, to enjoy themselves with or without us during the day, and to not develop attachments to the sounds of keys or whatever, predicting something bad. That's going to help you to help your dog be able to handle life after COVID, when hopefully we all, can go back to a normal life again. And frankly, it's all going to help you whether there's COVID or not. These are still the same um, things that you're going to do for any dog who is upset, is uncomfortable being alone. So that's my story. Again, we'll send you the downstay training plan. We'll also send you the PowerPoint slides. You can reach me on my website, separationanxietyandbeyond.com. So, jot that down and you'll get it in the email as well. But let's open this up to some questions now.
Thanks,
Can you
Tracy.
think-
That was great. We have quite a few questions, some really good ones. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get through them all, but we'll do our best.
Okay.
Let's see. So a couple questions about crate or no crate.
Yep.
Do you want to start with the crate?
In terms of, yeah, I mean, it depends on the dog and it depends on the situation. So, I mean, there are some dogs I've worked with, like a couple greyhounds who are so used to being in crates, who are so comfortable in crates, that they are they're just more comfortable. They can handle it better if they're in a crate. Many of the dogs that I work with either are afraid to be in a crate or it's frustrating to them. It's super frustrating. And so again, that works against our goals. If you can trust your dog not to chew up your house, not to go to the bathroom everywhere, and they don't need to be confined someplace specifically for their safety or to get away from loud sounds and stuff like that, I find that doing it without a crate is the easiest, is the best method. For those who do use a crate, the way that I do it, if we have to use a crate or a gate or something, we do the desensitization, the doorknob game, all that stuff out of the crate. We don't use any kind of confinement to do that, because sometimes you're just going to want to go get the mail or, go take the trash out, and you don't want to have to always put your dog in a crate and do all kinds of stuff. So we start out without using the crate for that, but then we'll do oftentimes the downstay, the relaxation downstay training at a, separate from the desensitization, over by where we're going to keep the dog, so that we're teaching them not to be afraid to be alone. We're also teaching them to fall in love with this place over here where all the good food and good treats come. And then when both things are going well, we can merge it. And now the dog can go behind the gate or whatever it is and handle being alone at the same time.
Awesome. Okay. I really like this one. What if something happens that she's terrified of, like garbage trucks, when I'm not at home?
Yeah, well, if there's a way to minimize the sounds of them, whether by turning on white noise machine or something, or having her stay in a room of the house far from the side where those sounds occur, then that's then that can help with that issue. Medications, when it comes to like a sound phobia or some issue like that, sound phobia, noise phobia has like a 80% comorbidity rate with separation anxiety. If you have one, you're going to have the other, and they can trigger each other. So medications are usually a helpful tool to give the dog some peace and to give you some peace as well, if you can't control the environment otherwise.
Great. And then as far as kind of defining separation anxiety, does the behavior have to last a certain amount of time before you would call it separation anxiety? What if they pace and do a high-pitched bark for 5 minutes and then they stop and lay down? Would you still qualify that as separation anxiety, or does it have to meet a different criteria?
No, I mean, so the lingo is a little wishy-washy almost, that is the dog scared? Is the dog frustrated? Whatever it is, the dog seems to be uncomfortable, right? Like that's not a relaxed state. I always like to say, think about your dog when he's lying on the couch next to you or, watching TV or when he's playing or whatever. That's what you want your dog to look like when you leave your home or do anything, right? Like you want your dog to feel that level of comfort. So whatever the label turns out to be is almost not as important to me as just reading the body language and saying, my dog's uncomfortable. So let's do X, Y, and Z to help him feel better about it. Oftentimes some of these dogs who maybe it's just they get frustrated by the actual departure, by the actual like act of leaving them, and then they calm down. Those can be an easy problem to resolve, because if we can quickly teach them not to panic about that initial departure, then once we get through that, they're like, oh, okay, bye, I get it now, I'm fine. So I would still help a dog. Absolutely would help a dog who's showing distress when you leave.
Great. Okay, so they're being trained with these exercises. We're working on this, but how does the fact that we will need to leave at some point before they're fully comfortable with that absence affect working on this?
Okay, good question. And I forgot, I did not put that in the presentation. Bad me. So here's the deal. Desensitization. Imagine our guy climbing the ladder. If he's comfortable up on the third rung and then his boss goes, John, dingbat, I'm tired. I don't have any more patience for you. Get up, get those boxes. I'm done with you. So he goes up to the top of the ladder. He goes to get the box, realizes where he is, gets dizzy, passes out, falls on the ground, breaks his other arm. What's going to happen the next time he goes to a ladder? Is he still going to feel safe where he was on the second rung or the third rung or whatever? No. He's going to maybe need Valium. So here's the deal. So somehow we need to keep the dog from feeling scared. So if the dog learns that 5 minutes away isn't scary, but you still have to go to the store or whatever, there's a couple ways to approach this. The one way is we find a place, maybe the dog goes to doggy daycare, maybe neighbors help out. Nowadays during COVID, so many people are working from home that on like services like rover.com and whatever, you can find people who work from home, don't want to get a dog, but they love dogs. So your dogs can come and stay with me at your house while you go to do stuff. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to work with your veterinarian to see if there are situational medications that can be given to your dog. Oftentimes I see people use medication trazodone. And if it works, you give it to the dog, wait about 2 hours and then leave. And the trazodone has kicked in and the dog is able to kind of like handle it and snoozes and maybe like a little bit sleepy through the day or whatever, but gets through it. And so you're not terrifying your dog. He's not tearing things up. He's not injuring himself. He's not barking all day and getting you in trouble. You're not getting to the root of the problem. But for the dogs that a medicine like trazodone can actually help relax enough so people can leave, it gives you more flexibility so that you're not always having to like find somebody to take your dog when you need to go do something. So there's a couple ways to look at that, but I would definitely talk to your veterinarian.
Thank you. Okay, so there's one so when you have small kids and there's so many more steps to get out the door, how feasible is it to do the desensitization to the different departure cues? She can't put the baby in the carrier and take her in and out. How do we break that down if we feel like there's a lot of extra steps? And then also sort of a related question, how do you get your dog to relax when she easily picks up on the fact that we're about to leave and starts getting revved up?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually do have a couple right now who have a new dog and they have a new baby and they're dealing with this. We have to break it down. So what we're doing for this family is it's too much if the dad's involved and the baby's getting picked up and blah, 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 blah. And the dog is like, baby, baby. And then the baby is picked up and it's just way too much. So we have to figure out, okay, how can we break this down so that the dog feels okay? And the way that we're doing it is by having the mom do the training now with the dad and the baby upstairs. So you can still hear, the dog can still hear the baby and stuff, but it's not so close that that is affecting him. And we're starting to get him comfortable with this idea that people can leave the house and it's okay. And so the mom is doing the exercises. He's starting to get comfortable with it. As he, now we need to start bringing the dad in. And once he's comfortable with both of them and the dad doing it, then we can bring the baby in. It is definitely harder. I'm not going to lie, with that, because babies, I mean, they're moving, they're crying, they have smells, there's all kinds of stuff. So it does add a level of difficulty. If it were me, I would be talking to my veterinarian to see if there are medications, not necessarily the short acting medications, but maybe a long acting medication that doesn't make him snoozy or anything, but helps him just kind of settle down, or her settle down, overall, not feel so scared and not so on alert all the time, so that we can maybe speed up the process. And then what was the second part of the question?
That was a separate question,
Oh,
just
okay.
related to departure cues, if they start getting revved up during those, when they can tell we're about to leave.
Well, if it's for a real absence and you're training the dog, I'm just trying to think, I'm just figure out how we say this. If we do the training correctly and we start out with baby steps, and we start adding in the departure cues individually, the dogs, those cues have less potency, because now we're picking up the keys, 20, 30 times, and it's not meaning anything, nothing bad is happening. Or we're putting on the jacket, or we're putting, we're grabbing our bag or whatever. So there's no longer a 1-to-1 ratio, keys equal scary thing, good God, now it's keys, make that sound, but most of the time nothing ever happens with it. So, we still do have this issue of, there's people, dog is being trained and somebody's staying, but the other person is leaving, and the dog is really, really responding, freaking out because the other person is leaving. We can do things like do some exercise, do the training exercises before the person leaves the house. We can do other kinds of games and stuff to help the dog feel, kind of have their focus elsewhere when the person leaves the house. There's a variety of things that we can do. But as the dogs become more and more comfortable with this concept that every time you stand up is not a terrifying event, those pre-departure cues have less and less and less potency if we do the training right. And so it has less of an effect when we have a real absence.
Great. There's a couple questions about a 2-dog home, with one of the dogs having separation anxiety and the other one not having it. But of course, the dog who does not have separation anxiety might need to go to the vet, and the other dog will need to be left alone. The bonded pair type of question.
Yeah. That's when I use both training methods. So I had a couple dogs last year that we needed to do this exact same thing. So first we do the desensitization exercises. We do the doorknob test. We do the relaxation, go to the door, nothing bad happens, blah, 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 blah. Like Dixie, the dog, Dixie, the German Shepherd. Once the dog is starting to feel comfortable with that, and the people have the bandwidth to start working on the other thing, then we start doing the downstay training. And we actually do the downstay training with each dog far away from each other. So they're not distracting each other. They both learn how to do it. Then we move the dogs closer to the door. We do the downstay training on a mat so that every time we do the training, the mat comes out. We ask them to lie down on the mat. They get their food. Da, 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 da. They eventually learn mat equals I lie down on the ground and I get food. Yay. So we train them on mats. We move closer to the door. And then we can start having the people and the other dog walk out the door while the first dog who's scared stays lying on the mat playing this game that she's been playing for however long on the mat. And so we're able to help her feel more comfortable with the other dog leaving. It'd be really difficult to do it through desensitization alone because we'd be asking this other dog to go out and come in and go out and come in and stuff. And that's just hard, you know? So by using the downstay training to teach that component with multiple dogs, you can do it successfully.
Thank you. A couple questions about their dog just generally following them around the house. They have an open floor plan. Their dog's always with them. How do they work on the relaxation just throughout the day? And then also sort of related, when they have company over, having your dog comfortable in the other room or chilling out in a crate during that time.
Okay, well, the shadowing issue, as we do the training, if we do the training correctly, what happens is, although dogs tend to kind of hang out with us, like they're social animals, right? They're part of the family. If I move to another room, Emma's eventually going to come and join me over there. Doesn't mean she's afraid, but yeah, if we have a dog many dogs are so need human contact so much that they literally don't feel safe unless they're touching a person. And so when we do the training correctly, we do the desensitization training correctly, you'll start to see the dog relaxing more overall. They're not on high alert anymore. And sometimes even after just a few training sessions, a dog that has always stuck by your side and follows you everywhere suddenly stays lying in his bed after the training is over and when you go into the kitchen and do other stuff and the dog just doesn't even follow. So some of it gets washed away as you go through the training. And my pea brain can't remember what the second question was.
Actually, I think you totally touched on it.
Oh, did
and
I?
I misinterpreted it, so you're good with that one. Thank you.
Okay.
A few people have asked about, oh, actually, okay, so kind of back to the pre-departure cues
Yeah.
for the doorknob test. If we are supposed to wait until our dog is relaxed between the sessions, how do we do that if they get anxious the very first time we walk to the door and put our hand on the knob?
You mean like in subsequent sessions or for the first one?
Sorry, within one session. So just a few minutes later, if you're trying again.
So you're going to okay, so here's what a session looks like. Here's a training session, day 1. You're sitting on the couch ignoring your dog. Like you just start the training. Okay, now's the time for me to ignore my dog. You get up, you walk to the door, you turn the doorknob, you immediately walk back to the couch, you sit down. Write down what you saw. Hang out for like 30 seconds to a minute or whatever. Get up, walk halfway to the door because your dog followed. Walk halfway to the door. Dog still follows. Go back, sit down. You're going to do those little steps we keep whittling down. 3 steps, no. 2 steps now. 1 step, cool. Dog is starting to chill. So now you're not going to go back up to the door. Now we're going to work in this area where we are. Dog is able to chill out with 1 step. Okay. Do a bunch of exercises that are like stand up, sit down, wait 30 seconds, walk 1 step, sit down, wait a minute, stand up. Then you can do 2 steps, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. So you're just going to kind of mix up noodling around that area. And little by little, you're going to watch your dog's body language. And probably by the end of that first session, you're going to be able to make your way back to the door while your dog is still chilling and maybe even turn the doorknob again or open the door. The next day when you do the training, so that's your session. You've done a bunch, you've done like 30 minutes of different exercises in 1 session. you're done. You could either wait a few hours or wait till tonight and do another session, or you're done for the day and go the next day. I like to always actually start with a little bit of like walk to the door, turn the doorknob and sit down, or once the dog is comfortable with that, open the door, or even at some point step out, come back in and then go sit down. I like to start the training session with something along those lines to cue the dog. We're playing that game. We're gonna do that stupid game where she just keeps getting up and sitting down, as opposed to like if you just stand up and sit down and stand up and sit down and take a step or two, they don't necessarily understand that this is part of the departure. So you would the next day go back and turn your doorknob and start from there and and you're going to see that pretty soon you're going to be able to start with the doorknob. It's not going to be a big deal. You're going to be able to open the doorknob. You're going to be able to step out, that kind of stuff.
And sorry, a few questions have popped up just now that I think I see over here. Are we treating between these steps?
Are we treating? It depends on your goal. So if you have a frustrated dog like Riley or Juniper or something who just can't settle down and is just bouncing off the walls, then after you've done all of the downstay training and you've taught them to chill out, like good old Riley flopped on his side and that kind of stuff, then you can, when you start bringing the desensitization exercises in and going to the door and coming back, you can give him a treat after each one. If you're just doing straight desensitization, you're just starting with the doorknob and you're just playing the little baby steps and then opening the door and moving out and all that kind of stuff. No, I wouldn't use food for that.
Thank you. A few questions about what if my dog gets excited at the door and thinks that they're coming with me, and then the anxiety doesn't start until I'm completely gone.
Yeah, and that's that, like fear of missing out kind of thing. And I'm seeing a lot of that now. That falls into the frustration category as opposed to fearful, usually. Actually in that situation, I have most of the time I can just do the regular doorknob test back and forth, back to the door, sit down, that kind of stuff without having to do the whole downstay thingy. I can just do some desensitization stuff to pretty quickly teach the dog that to break the connection. Right now, most of our dogs are thinking, hey, they grabbed their stuff and we all go someplace together. Yay, So by doing exercises, 30 minutes of I go to the door, but I don't go anywhere. I go to the door, but I don't go anywhere. I go to the door, you're not coming for a walk. I come back, like all these things, the dogs finally go, oh, I guess we're not going for a walk. And so to this day, because Emma she's no longer scared to be alone. But if Tom and I leave at the same time, especially now during the pandemic, because we haven't had the need to train her in years, but I'm seeing it now that she's so used to us now taking her with us places. So what I do is if I see that she's going to start rushing to the door to be like, where are we going? What are we doing? We're ready to go. I will go turn the doorknob or open the door. She'll run to the door and then I will go to the couch and I will sit down and I will do my silly like 2 or 3 or 4 desensitization exercises because Emma has gone through the whole system. She understands how it is. So now I can just do like 2 or 3 little exercises and she's like, oh, I'm not going with you, am I? We're doing that silly thing again where you do those silly walking to the door things and I'm just going to go snooze. And she's totally fine. If we trained her, if we really worked on it, I could knock it out so that I wouldn't even have to do that. But to me, it's kind of like, I'm fine. It's just a way of communicating to her. We're going alone this time, lady. We'll be back. Just hang out here.
Thank you. So everybody, we are getting really close to wrapping up. I think we only have 3 minutes. So I'll squeeze one more question in here, but I'm sure we won't get to every single one. So I'm sure Tracy would be fine with receiving emails, and so would we if you have follow-up questions. But for the last question, do you recommend watching our dogs on a camera or a webcam when we leave? And if so, do you have any recommendations for a good kind?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the only, because again, this all comes down to body language, right? So the only way that we can know if our dogs are actually comfortable being alone is if we look at their body language, thus cameras. You can do FaceTime, you can Zoom to your computer. For me, having a camera already set up that I don't have to log into the computer every time, whatever, to me, that's the easiest way. You can get really amazing cameras nowadays for like less than $30, $35. There's one brand that is very popular called Wyze, Wyze, I believe it is. I think it's like $35 on Amazon or something. It streams to your phone. I think it can give you alerts if your dog is barking when you're not home. So there's so many of these devices out there nowadays. I couldn't list them all. But like go to Amazon or whatever place you like to shop, and I think you'll pretty easily find something. Wise camera, somebody wrote, yeah.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
You are welcome. Are we done?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of questions, but I think we should probably wrap up at 4. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
Okay.
And I think we got to the really separation anxiety specific ones.
Okay, cool. Yeah, people can reach out, you know. I don't
All right.
bite.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.